Now it's time for layout XML. So this was probably the thing that frustrated me the most in Magento because I just simply didn't understand what it was doing or why it even existed. The purpose of this lesson is to get you very comfortable with layout XML. You should absolutely understand layout XML and how it applies to the different routes in your system. We've seen this slide before where we talk about the templates and the blocks being used together, and generally they're set up, they're configured, associated here in the layout XML. We've seen this before too. So as a reminder, we have in a page in Magento just this nested structure of blocks. All right? So you have your outside template, and then inside more templates, some of which contain other templates, etc. All right, well, when you're thinking about layout XML, just understand that it has two facets. On the one hand, describes the structure of your page. So, for example, you'll have a block, and then maybe you'll have blocks inside there, and you can start to understand the hierarchy. And it also gives you insight into the behavior. Like this block, oh, it's a core textless block. I know what core textless blocks do. And now you know what page HTML breadcrumb blocks do. So that's something you can always divine. If you're looking at layout XML, you should be able to start to gather a sense of the structure and the function. So, layout uses. Obviously, create a layout of your page, appropriately named. It's a good thing they didn't name it something like Roger. Add and remove blocks to existing pages. Well, that's starting to sound cool. So maybe in that default node, the instructions of which are everywhere, well, maybe if we don't want something on a particular route, well, we could maybe have a way to remove that. Or we could add more blocks. We could also, and I talked about this just a second ago, call any method of any block on the page. So in here, we can call methods by using the action tag, or action node. And that would look like this. Action method. Literally referring to a method defined for this class. And we just call the method name, and then we could pass in some arguments. That's used everywhere in the layout.
Do you use the tag array for arrays of arguments you use that? Is it like the container name is array?
It's arbitrary.
Oh, just like any container name?
Yeah, it's arbitrary. And we'll be doing that in a second. And you can set parameters to the block. Remember, blocks implement variant object. So we could call here, we could call, set some val. And then in a node here, we could pass in some string. Hey, that's pretty cool. So we can actually add data to the block through the layout. The layout XML is very powerful. What's the other? What's the other purpose of the layout XML? In a lot of other systems, you would assemble all the blocks for a page in your controller, right? So if you have designers, do you really want them touching your controllers? Absolutely not. This can actually give sort of your front-end developers a little more facility for customizing the blocks and their hierarchy without having to get into modules and the code. We don't have that on the slide, but I think that's great. So how many people here have already used or are familiar with Magento's layout XML? A few of you guys. Okay, how many of you have a good relationship with it? Okay, a couple of you guys. All right. So first thing, so if we have for our module, and this is done for the core modules as well, if we want to use our own layout XML file, and remember, all it is just this another spot where we're specifying layout XML because layout XML is all merged. In our config file, we simply, in the front end area or admin HTML area, declare layout, updates, and then we just need a unique node here, and then a file node that specifies a path to our layout file. You know, kind of like if we were declaring a template here, and we would have a path to the template relative to the template folder. Here, it's a path to a file relative to the layout folder. Love that. So, as a reminder, we use that fallback algorithm. So, if checkout.xml is found in our most precedent, most primary theme, no other checkout XML will be evaluated. Okay. So I told you that all of this XML from all of these files, once all the files are found according to our fallback hierarchy, all of that stuff is evaluated. Why isn't it all rendered on the page? Well, that's because of load layout. Load layout takes all of that XML and strips it out to the instructions that we need for a given route. Okay? And of course, I'm just sort of walking you through this at the pace at which I'm walking you through this because there's much better learning once we start to actually touch this. So the layout fallback, as we've discussed, specific theme, and then maybe as a default theme that we specify, and then the literal default theme, and then base default. Okay? Setting up the layout, load layout, render layout, in a controller action. That's it. Load layout, render layout. So, yep. In here, we're doing some more stuff that's probably going to be used in a template somewhere, but or by a block file. But we don't need to consider that. The two function calls here that matter are load layout, which gathers all that XML, strips it out based on some particular rules, which we'll discuss, and render layout. Oh boy, big slide, lots of text. Load layout. Okay, I actually showed you this function a little bit earlier. So what are the important pieces here? All right, there's actually, and I actually really was unaware of some of these extra handles that that are created automatically. So layout handles. I rather wish we discussed layout handles. Who knows? Who at this point? Who knows what I mean when I say layout handle? Okay, that's yeah. Okay, so if you want to open up, if you want to look in a layout file, one of the layout XML files, feel free. I will explain to you what layout update handles are. In your layout XML files, that root node is layout. Okay? Any node directly under layout is a layout handle, a layout update handle. All right? That's all there is. Layout update handles are just a collection of layout instructions. But the naming, their naming conventions actually do matter. So this is a layout update handle. And I'm not going to type that again. I said type, didn't I? Anything inside here, not a layout update handle. Okay? You now know what layout update handles are. As to what they do, we'll get into that, of course, just a second. But first, I'll talk about load layout. So Here you see we're generating, Magento generates some automagical handles. So if you didn't already have enough flexibility, you see here, store underscore mageapp get store get code. Theme, package get area, package name, package theme. So by default, we would end up, if I wanted to add some layout instructions, in my local XML file, I could actually specify a store code. So this one's automatically generated, store, and then store code. So for my English, it would be default, or French or German, and I could put some instructions in here. Or as I have configured, and I'm just not going to write all this out, but that's the store handle. The theme handle would be theme underscore, and then front end. Package name would be, if I was using the default configuration, front end, enterprise, default. And then the one that really matters, action handle. String to lower this, get full action name. Okay? Get full action name will normally take your module, controller, and action, and put underscores between them. For that body class, we'll just actually pass in a dash here, and that's why the body class has dashes separating those. All right? So after all of these handles are added, we load the layout updates, so get all the files from the system, and and eventually we call generate XML to build out the appropriate XML based on the handles that we have evaluated. All right, cool. And then at the bottom of load layout, generate layout blocks. That's where our blocks get generated. So up until this point, we just have an array of information about the blocks to be instantiated. Here we actually instantiate them. Cool. Render layout. Render layout is the partner of load layout. Finds out you could actually set a flag for no render layout and not get any return. Do a couple of setup here. So prepare titles in the head layout block. Render titles. Okay. All right. We also have, of course, some more events. Controller action layout render before, and controller action layout render before full action name. So two events being dispatched, just a generic controller action layout render before, and then less generic controller action layout render before. Say we're on the catalog product view. This would be controller action layout render before catalog product view. All right. And down here, translations happening. And okay, but this is probably the most important part, get response, append body. So here we've just assembled our output, and it's a string. We attach it to the body and get ready to send it to the browser. So I just discussed with you the action, store, and theme handles that are generated. Could also pass in a custom handle if we like. We'll look at that in a second. Okay, so this is what the layout XML looks like. Here's that layout node. Here's that version number that you can completely ignore and do not need to implement. Default is a layout handle. Customer account index is a layout handle, simply because they're they're children of a layout node. All right? Inside of the layout update handle, you just have instructions. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to start adding layout information for our module. So if we have a custom module and we need to get at the layout in the system, this is how you do it. So the first step is registering a layout file in our custom module. We have a slide that shows us how to do this. Way back here. Did I miss it?
You just touch it.
Here. Do this in your config file. That's what that means. Register. We have to tell the system, hey, I have a layout file. And this is how we do it. So in your config file, in your front end node, make a layout node. Inside layout, make updates. And then configure a layout file. And I will walk along with you. Oh. Let's see, I have routers here. So I can say layout, updates,
And you can share this between your different modules, right?
Hmm?
You can share this between your different modules, obviously. If you have to.
Mm.
You should.
Yeah, I
In
mean,
some cases I can imagine, like, if you want to have the.
well, I think I have a different answer to your question that we'll see in application. So day 2. Okay. So everyone should have something that looks roughly like this. And I just put this Ben's layout here because, once again, we're just simply choosing a unique node for ourselves. So in my front end node, I have layout updates nested here. And then just a spot to put our file into the mix. So the configuration, Magento is going to look in these nodes for a given area. So if we're in the front end, going to look along this path of front end layout updates, find all the nodes inside of there, and inside each of those nodes, look for a file node, and then basically create this list of files, of layout files to go find. So once I've done that, obviously I'll probably need to make that file. And people can change theme settings if they want to. So I'm going to put this in base default. So base app design front end, base default layout. And I specified a folder. So I'm going to use day 2. And I said that my file name would be custom. Okay, yeah. So, what can we do now? Well, I could specify some cool handle. Actually, sorry, that's not part of the exercise yet.
So where is your pen underscore layout? In config file.
Config file, front end, layout, updates.
Pen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about that?
Is it corresponding to a folder or what?
Not at all.
No.
Just needs to be unique.
Okay.
If I had put catalog there instead of Ben's layout, then I would overwrite the catalog
Okay.
setting.
Good.
So, yeah, and I'm glad you asked that question. That's exactly why I did that. Just trying to demonstrate the places where these things matter and where they don't. So, and custom XML. So, all these other XML files are using a default node. We're going to use one too. So, I actually, the example asks for a core template block. But you know what we're going to do? What's that? You're astute. Let's see. I'm going to reference name equals content. Okay, so I'm referencing the content block that's been probably specified elsewhere. Now, I could do see, the problem is if I do a core template block, then I've got to hook up a template file to get it to render output. So I'm just going to go ahead and say block type equals core text. Okay? And then I want to call that set text. We did that earlier, right? With those two blocks. I want to set text. So I'm going to call action method set text. And then I can just pass in some. This node here. What's wrapped here is just throw it away. It doesn't matter. We just simply need to encapsulate our text. So we're referencing the content block, which is defined, actually it happens to be defined in another default node. And we're basically saying, take our block instructions and add those to that. Basically make our block a child of the content block. Content block, incidentally, is a core text list. So any block that's added to the content block will be rendered. And once set text is called and some string is passed in to a core text block, well, then that block will generate some output. So let's check that it worked. And, okay, well, we could do that in our we could do that in our render controller, right? We can just make a new public function layout action. So public function layout action, all we need to do is call this load layout render layout. All right, so, that's actually pretty interesting here. Oh, maybe I should go and clear my cache again. Actually, I'm going to, since I'm working with layouts, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to disable that, just so I don't have to keep clearing out my cache.
That's the render controller thing?
Yeah. Hey, and there it was.
Yeah. Cache.
Yeah, cache. Cache is a wonderful feature.
Then the layout.
Yep. So load layout, render layout. This is more like it. So, block type is core text.
Custom.
We could do let's change this to catalog product view. I can refresh here, and this will be gone. Okay? It's still being loaded. Our layout XML file is always being loaded for every request. So if I go to catalog category view, I don't see it. But if I go into the product view, right down here, how did that happen? Well, that's because that's the action handle. That's why these are often named this way. So the things that you have to remember are that your layout file is being loaded everywhere, not just when you're in one of your controllers. And so I can actually affect the output of the instructions for output of other controllers simply by constructing the correct layout update handle. So does that kind of answer your question that you were asking earlier about?
Yeah, but that's why I was asking, can we have one file for a few modules?
Yeah.
We tend to really modularize our modules, so.
Yeah, I mean you can. This is absolutely appropriate. This is why the system was built this way. I mean this is how local.xml would work. You know, for catalog product view, use this instruction. Hey, for that content block, add this message here. I mean, heck, I could specify some HTML that would pull in a banner and add it, add it to the end, or I could actually insert it at the top. Okay, so that's what layout XML does. For controller actions that call load layout, render layout, we just simply need to know this. And how do we know this catalog product view? Well, it's that page. This page here. Let's see, what is this? So up here I have apparel, shirts, ink eater, Krylon, Bombear, destroyed T. This is 120. This is also catalog, product, view, ID, 120. Or it really is that. So catalog is the front name that would be configured in the catalog configuration file. Product controller, view action. That's that generated layout handle. So you can get an idea about all the generated layout handles in the system if you start looking at the different files, layout files. Okay. So customer here, there's a good one. Oh, customer logged in, customer logged out. That's probably not right. Actually, this may not be the best one. Customer account create. Customer account confirmation. So probably this customer is the front name for Mage customer, account controller, confirmation action. I could, if I wanted to add my stuff here, customer account create, I could just put that in here as well. And it would be there. So anyway, All right. Does that make sense? I mean, I hope that seems kind of cool. And it's late in the day. The example that we're supposed to do is in the product template. I'll just have you follow along with, or you can just watch me work here. So actually this is cool. I already have something in catalog product view. So if I wanted to echo something out in the template, I could. Let's see. I'll reference the name. What is that? Gosh, what is that catalog product view block called? Catalog product view. Okay. Name product.info. Yep. Okay. So product info. If I wanted to put something on this page somewhere, I'd want to find out what template that is, and I would find out that it's the catalog product view.phtml. So I just need to know the name here. So put that name in here. And then I can, basically I'm adding my instructions on into that block. So I can just call action method equals set this doesn't exist. Okay. And then I can pass in some value here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. Again, that node doesn't matter. And then this is a string. Okay. So I will copy this part down. And I believe I already have I've already customized my primary template catalog product view. Sweet. All right, so I customized this earlier. Oh, I did my Unix time here. So I'll just, instead of Unix time, I can just do this. Get, this doesn't exist. So over here, set, this doesn't exist. And again, these are those magic getters and setters from variant object. Voila. This is a string. Yeah, you can do that in XML.
So below the action, the tag, we don't need to be ARG, right?
Does it need to be what?
ARG.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
See, the first example, you have a tag ARG.
Oh, ARG. Yes, ARG. Yeah, no. This is arbitrary.
Arbitrary.
Yes. The only time it's not arbitrary is when, well, this level is always arbitrary, and this is simply, this right here is equivalent to me calling, relative to that class, this set this doesn't, blah, 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 exist. And then what gets passed in is this. Now here, this would have this white space around it, literally. But if I do this and then I passed in, this wouldn't go anywhere because only this would be set.
Okay.
But basically, this would be the same as passing these two strings in as two parameters to this function call. Okay? That's what that does, literally. And if I wanted to specify an array, I would do put nodes inside of a node. And in this case, the keys matter. What I would get here is an array would be passed in as a single parameter. Array would be passed in as a single parameter, and the keys for inside that array actually come from these nodes here. So I don't have to say key 1, key 2, but whatever I do say here becomes the string that is the key that would have this value associated with it. So that's how you can pass in an array structure. Okay. So layout XML and basic directives. All right. Layout update handles. Well, they could be anything. All a layout update handle is, again, is just a node directly under layout. In this case, this would be contacts, Mage contacts, index controller, index action. So if we happen to match a specific pattern, well, then whatever we put in there, our instructions will matter. So then we also have this the block directive. So we have and this is just some string, really. What we want it to do, if we want it to automatically sync up with some front name controller, I'm sorry, it's not really the front name, module controller action, well, then we'd want to have a specific format here. So that's a layout update handle. A layout update handle may contain a block. So a block would never be directly under layout. It'll always be under layout update handle. A block, actually, as we just saw, can have an action. Okay. And also have reference. Okay. Okay. So reference would be directly under the handle. Reference would never be under layout. And we'll always reference some other block in the system. Update is really cool, and so is remove. So we also have, I almost got that perfect. Update takes a parameter or an attribute of handle, and this is going to be some other layout update handle. So I can reference some other layout update handle, and basically that's just like an include. That's pretty cool. I'll be going over this some more. We'll be kind of getting practical with this. And then there's also the remove. Okay, remove will go directly under a layout update handle as well. So the thing to remember is the only thing that you'll find directly under layout are layout update handles. And remove takes one attribute and that is a name of some block in the system. Once a block has been removed, it is not unremoved. Because the record of that is kept in the layout object, but it just sets an ignore flag. So, blocks can have any sort of order of nesting, but this is a hierarchy you can always rely on. Layout, layout update handle. Under layout update handle, we can have block. We can have reference, we can have update, we can have remove. Blocks, though, we could put inside a reference. And blocks we can put in blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks. Blocks take type or class. So we saw that. We saw, block type equals, core template, for example. You can specify class instead of type, but don't. That's just old. Name. And a name is nothing more than a string. There's absolutely no significance in there other than it should be unique. As is some alias. No need to use that. Parent. So we could actually declare our block inside of a reference, like we did with the content block, and make our block a child that way. Or wherever the content block was originally set up, we could put our block inside there. Or we could also, and this is not done in the core anywhere, but you could also just directly say parent equals, and then you would put the name of some other block. So that would make this block a child, so I could just put this directly. It's not used. Graveyard of good ideas. And then the other part that we'll see, template. That's just some file. So that'll be in a template folder somewhere in a theme. And then the output block. And this is just a method that's called for rendering, and to.html is used. And this is already set for you by default for that root node. So unless you were doing something very specific with your custom views, or maybe you have some Ajax or something, that's what you would have there. So you generally won't ever have to specify this. The alias here is used only in the context of the parent block. So if the name and the alias are different, be sure to use the correct one. From within the parent block, you'll use the alias, and from basically everywhere else, you'll just use the name. Now, before and after, those only work in the context of text lists. Yeah. So you use a dash to put it all the way at the front or at the top or the end. All right. So yeah, here's just some examples of this block directive here, and the default layout update handle. Block being declared in there. Root. It's got the output. That's why you never have to specify it, because you only ever want one output node, one output block. And inside here, this head block has been made a child of the root block just by virtue of it being declared inside of that. Okay? And this is the template file for that. For that root node. And the root node has to call that get child HTML head. So it refers, actually in this context, it refers to the alias. Again, this is redundant. Without specifying the alias, the name is used as the alias. Okay. Now, the action directive. The action directive is, it actually has more functionality than what I've shown you. Somebody stole my pens. So inside of some, inside of a block, or inside of reference, block or reference, we'll have an action node. And action nodes do lots of things. So helper and JSON, these actually are node arguments. JSON's not used anywhere in the core, but I'll talk about the other ones here. So by far the most common usage, and you'll see this in layout XML if you look through it, is method. So let's say this is a page HTML head. Methods simply call a method that's defined in this block class. So that's why for where you see page HTML head declared in page.xml, you see things like, add.js. And that's an actual method that's defined in here. And then we just saw a second ago how we can use the magic getters and setters to just supply arbitrary data. Translate and module are used together. So if we call translate, let me open up a file here. So I think it helps to see this one in the code. And I think I have catalog. Yeah. All right. Okay. So if I call translate here, then I'm going to be translating. I specify a node name here, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm calling the translate function on this value, on this string, using catalog module. So this would be catalog data helper. It's helpers. So if I did this and I didn't have a helper defined in my module, I'd throw an error because Magento would try and instantiate a class. If you don't specify module, then just the core module would be used. So that's what those are there for. Basically, it ends up using a CSV file that would match this string. So basically, each line in the CSV file would have this in quotes, comma, whatever you would be translating it to, in quotes. So if you had a Spanish theme, for example, you could, and this for your layout file, and here we would have, nosotros. Well, you would actually have this. This would stay the same, but in your translation file, CSV, you would have like, our customer service something in Spanish. Let's see the node. Let's see node arguments here. All right. These node arguments here. All right, helper. Let's look at that. Let's see. All right, so, I love this. Actually, this is perfect. So for footer links, action method. Yep, okay. Oh, this one has translate, module, if config, and then the helper. All right. So in this case, helper, syntax here is class group name, so catalog, so Mage catalog, and helper map.php, get category URL method. So by simply just calling it, and you see this is a self-closing URL or self-closing node here. Basically, whatever the return value of this method is, will be passed in this case, as the second parameter to this add link method. So, I mean, using this, we could do anything. I mean, we could pass in a string, an object, and then there's if config. Oh, and JSON would be similar. You just pass in, you would specify JSON and pass in some JSON data. So,
Could you show us an example?
I'm really running out of time. But what it would look like would be, you know, URL, JSON, and then a string of JSON data.
But what I know, helper is only down to the data.
Well, there's all sorts of different helpers. In this case, I mean, when you see, you know, this module over here.
Yeah. So catalog, helper. No. Yeah. Catalog, helper, right? Data. So all the.
Yes, catalog / data. Although I just realized I need to confirm that. Hold that thought. I'll revisit this. I'll revisit the module node tomorrow. I just want to confirm something. But if I wanted to use the JSON instead of helper here, I might have URL JSON equals and then some string of JSON
Yeah,
data.
I know, but helper here map to the method, right?
Catalog
Uh-huh.
map. So this would be Mage catalog helper map.
Oh, okay.
And then inside here, this is a crappy syntax. Inside here, and then the method that would be called would be get category URL.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Get category URL is the method under the map.php.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an unfortunate syntax. I mean, maybe a double colon here would be a little bit more demonstrative of what was actually happening. Okay.
Still under the helper.
So, and then if config, this just simply checks for configuration value for being set somewhere in the configuration. So this XPath catalog SEO sitemap. This would refer to configuration value that's actually set in the admin.
Okay.
Okay? So basically, if that's true, then we'll do this.
Okay.
If it's not true, we won't do it. So, yeah, here's some example use of actions. So you can actually set up the prototype deprecation log or deprecation functions, and if that's configured, include this. But basically only do this if this returns true. And here we're adding in some other stuff. So is that kind of clear, the syntax of actions and using these nodes to pass in? And again, where it says script and style sheet, type, name, params, etc., like all of these nodes, because they're directly under action, they're just arbitrary. They're well named here. All right, the reference name, the reference directive, we used that a little bit earlier. Reference name equals root. So basically what we do, we would have the exact same effect as if we had taken this instruction right here and gone and opened up page.xml where the root block is actually declared and added this in there. That's all that reference does. Oh, that's what the slide says too. The slide agrees with me. All right, so remove directive, again, just specifies a name, not an alias, but a name of some block somewhere. And this happens for customer account login page. Remove name right, remove name left. That means, you know, I mean, you could probably say, well, why wouldn't you just use the one column template? Well, they didn't. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That's a bit crass, because really what's happening here is once we remove that, then we're not going to bother instantiating any of those other objects. It's just a little bit of efficiency to be gained here. Okay? So any other blocks that might be flying around contained in those blocks would never be instantiated. But because this is actually declared in customer.xml, in our local.xml, we'd have no way of adding these back for the customer account login route. So if we actually wanted those in there, then we have no choice but to override this, override customer.xml. Because once remove is set, it can't be unset. Okay, that brings us to like the last thing here. So update handle, this is a similar concept to like reference. We're basically referencing another update handle. So somewhere else, so here we see checkout multi-shipping login. Well, update handle customer account login. If I wanted to know what this meant, I would need to find customer account login and look at its instructions. Because what update does, it basically says, get me this handle's update, all the information that this handle contains, and add it in here. Why would we want to do that? Well, gosh, kind of makes sense. So, especially in the multi-shipping, so checkout multi-shipping, you have you want to recreate the customer account login. But, you know, you don't want to start having two identical layouts. You know, basically, if we started wanting to change customer account login, well, we'd have to go and duplicate that. So if we change it in one place, we'd have to go and change it in another place if we were doing here. If we do this, it's basically like including all those instructions in here. So that means that when we're on the route customer account login, we see a certain screen. Here, we're on checkout multi-shipping login, and we still just get these instructions. Does that make sense? If we didn't have anything in here, then checkout multi-shipping login would have no instructions. We'd just basically have an empty Magento page. I mean, we'd have the layout and everything, but we wouldn't have any instructions. The second we do this, we basically, we literally are saying to the layout update object, okay, hey, get me all the instructions for, that you have for customer account login, all those blocks and everything, and just add it in under here. And that way, wherever we change customer, whatever we do with customer account login in any module, will automatically happen for checkout multi-shipping login. But we could also have some arbitrary handle. In fact, the customer does this. Customer XML does this. There are, see, so like customer logged in. There's no Mage customer log. There's no logged controllers with an in action. This is just an arbitrary handle. But what we can do is we can actually either include this in our controller, or we could actually just call update handle customer logged in and include this instruction everywhere.
But the way it is now, does that mean it loads? Oh no, it doesn't load anywhere actually.
This in and of itself, this would never, you know, unless we have a logged controller with an in action, this wouldn't be used. But what we can do, let me see, actually.
Do we have a log control?
Update here, customer account. There's the generic customer account handle. Actually, okay, so that's not defined here. Oh, but it can be defined somewhere else. So, Yeah, so if we all right, so because customer account edit, okay, well, update handle customer account. Well, if we wanted to add something to the customer account edit,
Oh, yeah,
we could actually put it in this handle, but I had a better example of that. But anyway, in this case, it's actually not using the updates. So let's look at, well, probably the best example is checkout multi-shipping, which does do this. Okay? Okay. Exercise time. Getting the exercises out of the way early. All right. Create your own handle in layout XML file. Add output block to handle. Okay. In controller, add a new action and call. Okay. Add update node to include your layout update handle in CMS index. Okay. So, again, to remind, yesterday we made a layout file for our module, I believe. Yeah? Cool. All right. So, create your own handle in a layout XML file. Well, the next question is, what does that look like? So if you recall, I have my custom XML for my module in a folder under base default. Now, how does Magento know about this file? Anyone? Yeah, config. Bingo. So here, under my just really anachronistic day 2 now.
Day 4.
Yeah, it should be day 4. Oh, come on. Oh, it's not at all what I wanted to do. There we go. All right. Down here in the front end node, again, front end layout updates. And then I just need a container for my file node. Okay? So, that's how Magento knows about my layout update file. So, I can collapse this. So, how do we make a layout update handle? That's it. It's just any node directly under layout. And once we have that, we can put some instructions in there. So, add an output block to the handle. Okay, well, here we go. We can say block, type equals core template, name equals subname, output equals to HTML. And if we want this to do anything, we'll want to specify a template. So template equals, let's see, template equals sum/template dot phtml. Let's see. And actually, I'm not going to add any other instructions in here just yet, so I can close that. I can just close that node out directly. So I've specified, let's look at this block declaration one more time here. Specifying a type. Now that's going to connect. That's going to connect a template with a block class. So in this case, MageCore block template, the fundamental block class which uses templates. And I've just assigned some string value as a name. Specified the output because in this context, I'm going to need an output block, because I'm not going to use any of the other instructions in the system. And then specifying a template file. So what I would need to do then is make this file. So in my case, I can just go into base default, template, create a folder sum, and in here I'll create a template file, template.phtml. Okay, well that's good. So what do we do? Yeah, what do we do with that? Well, now we want to access that through a controller. So I'll go back to my time-tested register controller. Public function. And I'll call this handle action. And then I only need to call this load layout. But this time, instead of an empty parameter, I'm going to specify my handle. And then call render layout.
Where's your template.html located?
I chose because it's unique in the system. I'm pretending that this is something I'm releasing out into the world for the benefit of all, and I put this in base default. And again, it's okay to put something in base default, provided it's properly namespaced. Now, you could argue that namespacing it with some may be, suboptimal at best, but really just want to demonstrate that it is okay to put stuff in here. In fact, it's entirely appropriate, because if I put this in my custom theme, and then I don't specify that theme, well, my template file won't be found. So, as we can see here, Mage EE 10 custom render handle. So, custom again, my front name that I configured to connect these requests with my module. So, custom render handle, and this is my template. Is that kind of clear? Does that work for everybody? If I call if I just copy this load layout, render layout, and I get rid of this handle. Well, that's what Magento likes to do in most places, and that is use the layout object to just automatically generate those handles. That store handle, theme handle, and then the action handle. So it takes all of that XML that was assembled, and then this strips out everything we don't need and generates our blocks. So if I go here right now, I'm just going to see a Magento page. If I wanted to do something, let me see, I could, okay, so this cool handle has an output block, so that would be 2 output blocks in one thing. If I do this, so let's say, how would I know what my layout update handle is here? Well, I could do one of 2 things. Once I've loaded the layout, I can inspect the source, find that body tag, and look for that class. Oh, look, foobar, render final. Where does that come from? Well, final is the action, render is the controller, and here I've got custom, but here I've got foobar. This part right here comes from our configuration. Right here, it comes from this node. Okay? So I could just simply copy that. I'd obviously have to change that to underscores. Oh, that didn't work so well. Now what I've done is I've made an additional layout update handle. That's my full action name. Okay? And then here I can just say update handle equals cool handle. Okay? And now when I go here, and only because this block here is also specified as an output block. Oops. What's that? Oh, that's right. Thank you. Good catch. I don't know that I would have caught that so quickly. And yeah, and down here I have, this is some template, simply because the first output block is rendered and then this output block is rendered. So again, bad idea to have an output block in the system. But you see how all I've done, and I didn't have to change anything in my controller there. I'm actually doing what Magento does in most places, which is just load the layout and then render the layout. Okay? And I just simply use the layout XML to add this instruction here under that route. Okay. Now, if I wanted to have a child block in here, so if I wanted to have a child block in here, I could just declare a new block, and we'll use the core text list block. I'm sorry, yeah, core text. Actually, no, I'm sorry, let's not do that. Let's do, actually, yeah, let's do that. We'll do core text. Give it a name, some other block. Again, just a string. and it's a core text block, so it won't use a template. And then in here we'll do action method equals set text. So this is just a method that's defined in the core text class, right? And then in here we just pass in some arg. Then I need to close out my block. So, all right. So you can see here I've got the same block that we had before, but now I've specified another block inside of it. So this is a child block now of this block. So now I could go here and I should, or let me see, I'll go back to this route here. And I should see that block, right? No. Why not? Why don't I see, that was good. I did that right. Why don't I see the output of that child block here? Because the parent block isn't a core textless block. Core textless block is the only one that's going to render its children automatically. So, in my template, I'd want to copy this name here, and then say get child HTML. So this get child HTML, and then pass that string in.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Aha. So, only those core textless blocks are going to render their children automatically. I also could have specified, I could basically recreate that core textless kind of functionality if I just leave this call empty. And then get child HTML will just render all of the child blocks of this block. All right. This poll issue, I will walk through this. Having you guys figure it out on your own takes a bit too much time. I'm just a little bit behind schedule here. So, what I'd like for you to do is figure out how to make the home page use the 3-column layout, and I'll give you a hint.
Make a home page.
CMS in the admin. So here I'll set this to 3 columns.
Sure it's finished. Okay, good.
Okay, so fundamental problem. I want this poll over here in the left block, but, and this happens, this can happen a lot in Magento, but I could remove this block and add it again. Right, so I could say, let's see, actually first I'm going to get in all right. Oh, it doesn't have layered navigation.
I would comment layout XML from the right block of that child block community pool and move it to the left block. Yeah, comment the child
Yeah, but we don't want to touch any of the core layout files.
Oh, okay.
So how would we do this?
Use a local XML.
Yeah, we could use a local XML in our theme. I think I'll leave this intact. Now,
Since our module is loading, we can just keep it in there, right?
yeah, I mean, I could do the instructions in there, but you know, if we were doing this for on a thematic basis, so I have,
Oh, there is a, yeah.
see, I have
There is
custom package, and I've got my primary. Hold up. Let's see, what are my settings here?
we should remove and edit. Yeah.
All right. System configuration. Design. Custom primary. Okay, so my layout will actually be using custom here. So I'm going to add primary to my layout instructions.
Okay.
Okay. So that means I should be able to add a layout folder to my primary theme, and then add local XML. Just said local. All right. First, I want to check that this is working. Okay, good. No harm, no foul. All right. So, problem is, I want to move this block everywhere. You know, basically on every request, I want to get rid of this layout, this poll, move it over here to the left. But I want to use the same instance. So how would I do that? Let's see.
What do you say instant?
Well, where is that being instantiated? So I would say, okay, let's find out where that's coming from. Base, default, layout,
I think page.
poll XML.
Oh, forward.
Okay. Oh, look at that. Right. So here, just in the default node, for that right block,
Mhm.
we're creating this block right poll.
Mhm.
Ah. Okay. Huh. Well, if I remove it, if I use remove, that'll get rid of it for sure. But then I wouldn't be able to add it back with the same name. Yeah. All right, so we're in the default. We see unset child. Okay, and right block. So I'll probably need to remember the right block, the name of the child. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So default reference name equals right. And then what does that call look like here? Oh, action method unset child, and then you pass the name in. Oh, I could probably just copy this here. Actually, I could have copied this whole thing. Calling unset child on a block does not unset the block instance. It only removes the reference to the block from the list of children within the parent. That also is the difference between the unset child method and the remove XML directive. Does that work? Hey. Cool. I like it.
So you unset it, right?
Yeah, so it's gone here. So that's a good first step. Okay, so now, but I have to move it from the right column to the left block. So over here, above the layered navigation. This is the layered navigation. All right, well, I'll just add it to the left block here. And I can do that using let's see, action method. Insert, maybe. I know there's an insert command, right? And it'll probably be the same thing. Oops. So, insert, and specifying for the name, same name. Let's see what the effect is.
Oh, at the bottom.
Oh, it's down at the bottom. All right, well, that's a start. Okay.
No, not actually at the bottom.
Yeah. Oh, it's in here, yeah. It looks like something's going on. Popular tags is after that.
Yeah, at the,
That's weird, huh? Okay, so getting closer. This was a big step moving it from here to here.
let's see the local XML again.
So now I need to specify, how do I get that order right? Well, let's see here.
So if we did an actual block under that, that wouldn't work because it was reinstantiated. That's why you're using an action insert.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean the block exists. This because of poll XML, you know, this block exists in layout object. I'm just using instructions to move it around. Basically just to trying to assign it to a parent. And I've done that. So that's half the battle, getting it assigned to this left block as a parent, or getting it assigned as a child to this left block parent. So, okay, now I need to figure out how in the world. Well, I wonder if there's some other parameters with this insert function. So yeah, there might be something like before. So let me see. I want to look this function up. It's probably core functionality. So again, I'll search in PHP files for n space insert. Maybe parenthesis. Oh, Mage core block abstract. We know that one. Well, that makes sense, because all blocks will have this method. Oh, look at this. A treasure trove of information. Insert block. Okay, well, we know we got that right. So, let's see. Sibling name. All right. Oh, and look, it looks like, you know, we could use this internally in controllers. We could actually pass in an object. But through the layout, we pass in a string. And if we pass in a string, then internally this block gets reassigned as the actual block object. Okay. Sibling name and after. After. That's weird. Huh. Seems a bit clunky. So I wonder what after does here. Oh, look, we've got a lot of array unshifts and array pushes. All right. So it looks like array array unshift. Oh, that looks like we might be able to get our block at the top here.
It's at top. The one at the top is generated by the software.
So, looks like we need to find out, we need to refer to a block, another block, well, basically a sibling under this, and figure out whether we're putting it before or after that sibling. So we probably need to know what this layered navigation block is called.
Could I see the local XML again?
can't use the dash notation for like top and bottom, basically, seems like. So
No.
I'm trying to get this not working. That would be nice. Who knows if that's in there somewhere else.
Yeah. So we need to find out, the thing that we need to do now is find out the name of this block. So let's see. Okay, layered nav. So we could turn on template path hints. That'd be a reasonable thing to do. Enterprise search block catalog layer view. Whoa. So probably enterprise underscore search / catalog layer view. Well, I can search the layout for that, and I can be pretty sure that that's going to be in that enterprise folder somewhere. Or since I copied that default theme, there we go. Oh, search. Okay, so here in search XML. Okay. Oh, look.
Yeah.
Magento is removing this block and adding this block. That's unfortunate. What we're doing is the opposite of this. So we need to use this name. We're not removing any blocks. If we were declaring our block, we could just call before with a dash. That would be so nice. But we're doing this in local XML. So let's see. All right, and after is false by default, so hopefully this will do the trick.
Where do you see what's removing it? What's the file? I don't see.
That is, it's search.xml and it's from enterprise. Man,
I think we need to move ahead. Don't care about this one.
okay, so, well, we're inserting it. IPO enterprise catalog left nav. That should be right, yeah? Boy, this is pretty hard.
Which one use ran first?
We try to move the
Huh.
whole.
Now there's a thought. Well, where is this specified? That's a good thought to have. Oh, this is a This is a different update handle, isn't it? Haha. Free lunch winner back there. Maybe we need to do this. Ta-da! Yeah, so Vinay, my colleague, was the one who came up with this example. And yeah, it's a monster.